If you're looking wistfully out the window at a frozen or snowy gray day, you know that winter can be a real drag. Some birds fly south for the winter, and sometimes those birds clog up South Florida roadways. But what if you could fly so far south that it became spring again? That's what the bar-tailed Godwit does. But soaring into the wild blue yonder in search of opportunity can really pay off in life, death, and taxonomy. Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube or Spotify.
And thank you to Johanna for the creation of this week's artwork. To check that out, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at LD Taxonomy, or visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com. And a very special thank you to our patrons, to Tristan Taylor, Jesse Raspolich, Carol Raspolich, and Richard Kaspar. Thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on.
And today we're talking about Godwit the Sorin, but more on that later.
Oh, that's my...
It is?
It's my nickname. No, that's not the same thing. I said Godwit the Bolden, but because it just works.
That's good too. That's good too.
We haven't talked about Elden Ring in enough time, so it's been too long. So, but yes, we are talking about the bar-tailed Godwit, which this is the first I'm learning about the entire genus of birds. This is a kind of bird. There are terns, there are gulls, and there are godwits.
Yeah.
Which the ornithologists are just wishing they could slap me in the face going, of course there are godwits. But, yeah, interesting category of bird. We're going to call it here the Godwit the Bolden, which is what I already said. It's a deep Elden Ring cut. Actually, no. If you've played Elden Ring, then you know what I'm talking about. It's not that deep of a cut. We're also going to call it the Trail of Spears, because their beaks are like spears. The educated voters, because they head to the polls. Bibby gets credit for that one. That's one that she came up with while we were bathing the kids tonight. And then Darth Vader.
Nice.
It's a waiter. And
Yeah.
it's just... And it's going to serve you up a delicious platter of interesting animal facts.
It sure is.
We'll be your waiters this evening or morning or whenever you're listening.
Is there a science about it?
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sciences for this one. Yeah, so buckle in. Because we're gonna go through all of them. Science number 1 is that it's in the kingdom you know, love, and are in, and that's Animalia. The phylum is Chordata. The class is Aves. This is a bird. The order is Chirandriformes. That's a nice one. Chirandriformes. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a magic card linked to a planeswalker. This is gulls and other water birds. Not all water birds, but many water ocean fowl are in this order. The family is Scolopacidae, which is sandpipers in particular. The genus is Limosa, which is godwits specifically. These are large migratory wading birds, meaning that they walk, knee deep or joint deep in water and look for food there, kind of like a heron, except I was wondering, like, why aren't like herons and egrets in this? And I think, and this is me talking without research, I think it's because they don't migrate. That must be the difference. Because they also have, they have long spear beaks, and they hunt in a similar fashion. The species is Laponica, so Limosa laponica, and there are several subspecies as well. But that is the nomenclature. And since we are in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, Critter Groups, the part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question, and that question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal? Or what is the term of venery? Or what is the collective noun? 3 ways to say the same thing, or to ask the same question. If you saw a group of Godwits, what would you call them? Would you call them A, a college of Godwits, B, a collage of Godwits, C, a pantheon of Godwits, or D, a mission of Godwits?
A collage, final answer.
It's incorrect.
Is
I
it-
am.
is
I
it a
can't.
college?
I was. I thought that was a throwaway. It's a pantheon.
Well, see, the thing is, I thought that one made sense. Mission and pantheon made
It
sense.
does make sense.
So they can't be a term of venery if they make
gotcha.
sense.
They most certainly can.
Could.
We have a murder of crows.
Crows are...
They're murderous.
Yes.
A congregation of praying mantises.
Fair. Yeah, well, those are the exceptions that prove the rule.
There are some really good ones there, and birds tend to have some really good collective nouns. I'm always excited to do a bird specifically because I know Critter Groups is going to be good. It's a pantheon of Godwits, like that. That's awesome. There are also some other good ones. So if for some reason we lose this footage or we do another Godwit, we will have there's more material there. It's ripe for the picking.
They come in clutch, those ornithologists.
Yep. Do you want to know what this guy looks like?
Sure.
So this looks like a big sandpiper. That is the gist. It has a longer beak than sandpiper, and yes, it is bigger, longer legs. Its feather color depends on the time of year. During breeding season, males have a chestnut to like what's the word for like a reddish brown? Russell?
Yeah, rouged.
Like that that hummingbird.
Rufus.
Rufus, yes. Rufus, face and neck and chest and belly. They have dark brown and white plumage on their wings and tails. This is breeding season, so that's it's a striking bird. Not like bright colors, but it's very, very rich colors. Other times of the year, outside of breeding season, they have white grayish brown. So it's duller, it's more faded. It's kind of like if you left one of these guys out in the sun, in like the back of your, like the back of your car above the back seat under the window. Like if you leave something back there for too long, all the colors are sucked out of it by the sun because I'm sure that's how the sun works. It just sucks color out of things.
Right.
It's a color vampire.
Yeah.
And we should all be afraid. But yeah, so it's got duller plumage in the off season. It gets its name from the horizontal black bars that go across its tail feathers, so it is the bar-tailed Godwit. It has the long angled wings of kind of a gull, so it's got this boomerang-looking shape when it's flying. And it has a thin, sharp, long beak for snapping up underwater worms and clams. That's sandpiper.txt. And it also has thin, long legs for splooshing around in the water, which is less sandpiper.txt and more like like a heron or something like that, a wader at Olive Garden, and I think it's good to go for the description. This is larger than your typical sandpiper, though. So, Joe, how much larger is it? I expect all of my answers to be in form of sandpipers.
Welcome to the beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show. The part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send an audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words Measure Up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have any Measure Up intro this week, but we do have a follow-up email from Nora.
Oh.
We talked about her three-legged husky. And
oh, yes.
She says, I showed up to the rescue and asked for a dog that could handle the world's most annoying 4-year-old, and this is what they gave me. So I guess a husky has got the temperament, and I guess the lack of leg has humbled it and given it some perspective. So it's a sage husky. And then she said, that's me saying that. And now here's what she says. She's excellence. Read children. We give her massages to get rid of phantom limb pain. Do you know dogs can get phantom limb pain?
I imagine that anything can get phantom limb pain, especially a mammal.
Well, I assumed that maybe like phantom limb pain was the result of like higher brain function, and you expecting, maybe not. She says, I swear I never set out to own weird pets, but Shyla, I assume is the dog, is good with kids. And a friend was
Shyla or Sheila?
It's Shyla. It's like, how do you spell Sheila? With a Y?
I think it's Sheila.
Oh, no, it's Shila.
Okay.
I mean Shyla. I can't read letters. And the wrinkled cat's name
that
is
sounds
Pearl.
like Shyla.
She sent a video.
For a wrinkled
she
cat.
sent a video, and this dog can really move for having one less leg than the other dogs in the dog park.
Maybe the leg it's missing contained all of its irritability, and so now it's the perfect dog for the world's most annoying 4-year-old.
I'd be interested to. It did that leg. The missing leg also contain its husky readiness to like sing the song of its people, because I know huskies can be really loud and yelly.
Huskies don't like me. I get along with all kinds of dogs, but for some reason, whenever we were at the dog park and there was a husky there, it would just stare me down and growl.
Is it one husky? Or is it any husky you've ever seen?
It was any husky.
How do you know it's not the same husky at the dog park?
Because they come in different shapes and sizes and colors.
Fair enough.
There's like brownish huskies and
thanks for the update.
Black huskies.
Nora's putting the team on her back in terms of listener engagement once again. But let's get into this.
Measure Up.
Funny. Oh, since we don't have a new Measure Up intro, that means we have to hear from an animal, and Carlos has to guess what it is. Without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show. What could that be?
What are my options?
Here's a hint. Here are the options. Is it A, a sheep? B, a capuchin monkey? C, a raven? Or D, a bar-tailed godwit?
Man, that sounds just like the bird that they put in in Ghost of Tsushima that like leads you to secrets on the island. Like has a very similar cry to that. So I was really hoping that you were gonna say 4 different kinds of birds, and one of them was gonna be like the yellow Japanese songbird or something like that. And I was gonna be like, got it. I knew that one thanks to video games.
The Mockingjay.
No, that's not a real bird, is it?
No.
I'll go with the Godwit. It doesn't sound like it could possibly be a sheep. Monkey is a possibility. I don't know what the third thing was, but we can go with Godwit.
Final answer?
Yep.
The correct answer was the thing you couldn't remember. It was a raven.
Oh, a raven. I've never heard a raven make that sound.
Ravens can make a ton of different sounds. They're quite talented. Let's talk about length.
Yeah.
Oh, ready?
What? Yeah. Nevermore, I was going to say.
They're between 37 and 41 centimeters, or 15 and 16 inches. How many Godwits go into the length of Frodo's journey from Bag End to Mount Doom?
Oh, this is fun. 16 inches.
Here's a hint. There are several estimates for the distance traveled, but we're going to go with the estimate made by cartographer Karen Wynne Fonstad. And the trip also took 183 days.
Yeah. Well, when they were in Lothlorien, there was all kinds of timey-wimey nonsense happening, so who knows how long it took. I mean, I know exactly where they went and all this stuff. I have no idea how far this stuff is.
They also spent a month in Rivendell?
They spent a long time in Rivendell. Well, the Hobbit spent a long time with Tom Bombadil at the get-go.
I thought that was only a few days.
A lot of. It took them days just to get there. They spent some time with some of the wood elves on the way. They got captured by the Barrow Wights. They spent some time with Tom Bombadil. Then there's Rivendell was a while. Lothlorien was a long time. They were lost in Imminmuil for a few weeks, I believe. And they stayed with Faramir for a little while in Ithilien. So, and it took them like a week to get across Mordor once they got in there. So the movie makes things seem like they took not very much time, but in the book, everything takes longer in the book, including reading it. I mean, I really don't know. If Bree is a 6-day walk, at least from Rivendell, that is a long way.
They have short legs, though.
Yeah, so it's even longer for them. I mean, it's the same distance, but it takes more effort. I'm going to say 1,000 miles. That sounds like way too much. No, I mean, in 6 months, you could walk 1,000 miles. Yeah, because the Appalachian Trail goes from Georgia to Maine, and that takes 7 months for through hikers to walk. And those are like full-grown humans, so, and that's like I think upwards of 2,000 miles. So I'm gonna go 1,000 miles.
Final answer? Or no?
No, because I need to figure out how many Godwits go in there.
Mm-hmm. At least a few.
3.9 million.
Final answer?
Godwits. Yes. Yes, yes.
The correct answer is 7 million Godwits.
It is a 1,500-mile journey?
1,779. Or 2,863 kilometers. It was long.
That is a long way.
But apparently,
there and back again.
We could all make better time.
Apparently.
Than the hobbits. They had a lot of detours.
Yeah, it helps to not constantly be captured, and it also helps to be taller.
It does indeed.
And to not have an ancient evil strapped around your neck.
I was reading an article that literally said that. It's like, you could do a lot better if you walk like 12 miles in a day like an average person can. But you also wouldn't have the most powerful evil in the world around your neck. So it will be harder for Frodo. Poor Frodo.
Just put it in a box or like your backpack or something. Why does it have to be around your neck? Like, take it off your neck and put it in your backpack and forget about it and just move on. I mean, it's going to be whispering your name the whole time, but like, just put on your earbuds.
What if you lose your backpack? It's more safe
your AirPods
around your neck. Everyone loses their AirPods.
What if you lose your neck?
That's true. Well, then you don't have to worry
You're going to
about
lose your neck
anymore.
You're going to lose your neck because this thing is, like, at the end of the movie, his neck is just, like, just charred with how heavy this thing is. Anyway, we're on a detour, but...
Let's talk about
like the Hobbits.
Female. I guess tell Faramir to bring us where we're supposed to go.
Osgiliath.
Let's talk female weight. Females are bigger, as is the case with many bird species. They're 260 to 630 grams, or 9.2 to 22.2 ounces. So around 4 Godwits equal the weight of this early Renaissance period sword. What's the sword?
Like a kind of sword? Or
yeah.
There's sword?
No. Not like
Excalibur.
Not like Excalibur. Yeah, a kind of sword. Here's a hint. The sword was developed to sacrifice speed for reach and power. It played a pivotal role in the 1689 battle against the forces of William of Orange. The sword's wielders withstood a round of musket fire before hacking the shooters to bits. Shortly after this, though, the sword was made obsolete by developments in firearms.
22... It's about a 5-pound sword. 5.5-pound sword. Sacrificing speed for reach. See, I want to say the rapier, but those are pretty fast. You can be pretty fast with those. But that would kind of go along with this weight here. 1689. Yeah, I'm going to go with the rapier.
Final answer?
Final answer. Yep.
I think, the correct answer is the claymore, which was around 5.5 pounds. You vastly overestimated the weight of swords.
Yeah, I sure did.
Don't you watch like Shadiversity, where he talks about how like swords are actually quite like way lighter than people think?
Yeah, yes, but I don't know what 5 pounds feels like. To me, that sounds like nothing.
A 5-pound weight in the gym is like nothing until you hold it out like arm's length. And then it's not that bad, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to like swing around. But
I've got like a rubber longsword, and I feel like it weighs more than that. I got a rubber longsword behind me. You can see it in the video if you're watching this on YouTube. So that feels like it weighs more than 5 pounds.
I thought
and that's not made of steel.
I thought the fact that like this was a contemporary of muskets would be a red herring, because I did not know that the claymore seems like such a like classic medieval weapon is a Renaissance period sword.
Yeah, that's why I went.
Musketeer swords.
Rapier.
Yeah, rapier. No, its heyday was like one battle, before like people really started to make muskets a thing. And yeah, and then firearms made it obsolete. So it had like really one battle where it was cool.
A giant two-handed sword that you could use as a spear. Part of it was not even part of the blade wasn't even sharp, so that you could grab it and use it as a spear.
But it was such a symbol of like strength and honor among Scottish Highlanders that everyone knows the Claymore today, and it's still like in symbols and coats of arms and stuff like that. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, a rapier weighs 2 pounds, 2.2 pounds. That is, I mean, it doesn't sound like it's that much lighter, but it is like a third of the weight of the claymore.
Yeah, and also weight that's farther away from you is harder to wield.
Yeah, there's an entire different way of using it. Interesting.
Yeah.
These are two very interesting and measure up facts that are right in my wheelhouse, and I'm kind of sad I didn't get them. It's like, finally, you talking about Lord of the Rings and swords. I got this.
The weight of swords is like a notorious thing for people to misunderstand. If you would have asked me,
I'm bad with weight in general.
Yeah, well, if before doing the research for this, somebody was like, "How heavy is a claymore?" I would have said like 12 pounds.
Or 12 feather in Skyrim. It's just the feather symbol.
Do you have any fast facts?
I have fast facts, and I also have an animal encounter story.
Ooh.
I guess this is a good place to put it, but it wasn't mine. It was my parents. My parents and sister just went to Puerto Rico for Christmas, and they went to the island of Vieques off the coast of the island of Puerto Rico. So it's island off the coast of another island, and like it's not easy to get there. There's like one ferry. There isn't a lot on the island. It's very it's not very developed. It's pristine, or more pristine than most other places. Anyway, they went there specifically to do the bioluminescent stuff. I think you did it at in Indian River, right? Yeah, Titusville. Bibby and I did it as well. I don't know what your experience was, but the bioluminescence was there, but it wasn't very bright.
Same.
Like the whether the moon is out, whether there's like light pollution nearby, the time, the temperature of the water, and just the time of year and all this stuff. All these things need to line up and the weather all needs to line up to make it a good night for bioluminescence, and it wasn't for us. We saw some cool. It was cool to see like some light, some like you dip your hand in there and you can see its outline in grayish white, which was cool. But they saw the real deal, the bright blue Pandora Avatar stuff, and that's due to not quite microscopic, but very, very tiny organisms called dinoflagellates, little animals that, when disturbed, glow with bioluminescence.
And no one knows why.
So my dad did his master's thesis on this. He did it. His master's thesis for landscape architecture was done on the dinoflagellates in Vieques, in Mosquito Bay on Vieques. So, and I edited it, and I do not remember what the answer was on why they do that. His whole thing was like how they need to like they're dying out, and how like what they would need to do to the area, like adding in trees and creating like a better protected bay shelter for them and all this stuff, in order to like help the population recoup and grow and stuff like that, because this is the best place to see them in the world. There's only a few places in the world where they even exist, and this is the best one. And so they got the full experience, which was super cool. It's like you're on a kayak and you can see in the middle. You're on the kayak at night and you can see fish in the water just because glowing blue, because they're disturbing the dinoflagellates as they move through it. And so like super jealous. Wish we could have gone. But also, the island has a horse problem. Like other cities have pigeon problems, this island has a horse problem. They're absolutely everywhere, and they're wild, and they're just there. It's like they're like deer, but if they were everywhere. They're in the roads, they're on the streets, they're walking around the buildings. My mom has a video of her. They're just walking to the beach, and there's a horse just following them. It's just walking alongside them, and the car comes and just moves off to the side. And they're trying to drive through, and there's horses like licking their windows and trying to and seeing if they have any food. And they've got pictures of there's just dozens of horses around them. It's like,
That's
it's like in Futurama, like the pest is owls.
Wild horses that are like also very like friendly with people or like used to people. So it's like a giant animal that wants food from you that you might not have. Oof.
Yeah, it's I mean they said they didn't feel like scared or anything, but because the horses seemed really chill. But yeah, it's I've never thought that there would be an area that it's just a bunch of wild horse, not ponies, full on horses. And if you go out and walk around, they may just kind of sidle over to you and see what's going on and hang out like if they were squirrels or iguanas in South Florida. Yeah, it's like iguanas in South Florida. They're just, you just walk into an area and there's a field and there's 60 of them.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
How do you spell Vieques?
Go check out.
Oh, with a Q.
Viequeus.
Vieques horses. Interesting.
I actually haven't looked it up because all I've done is look at the pictures that they showed me of their vacation, and I was like, huh.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's my animal story, even though it wasn't me that encountered it. But anyway, so fast facts about the bar-tailed Godwit. So these mostly live in the north. They are northern dwelling birds. They live mostly northern Siberia and Alaska, and one subspecies lives in North Scandinavia. And that's that. I'm sure they spend the whole time up there and never travel or migrate anywhere. So no need to talk any more about that. They eat mostly bristleworms. Basically, bristleworm is basically like an ocean centipede. It's a large category of marine worm, and there are some that live in estuaries that can be snapped up by long, sharp, piercing beaks. They also eat clams, snails, and crustaceans. They prefer to hunt in these estuaries and mudflats to find these animals. And the last little piece of fun fast fact I will say before we move on to the major fact, which will probably have nothing to do about where they live, is that the Godwit is either an onomatopoeia, which I just today found out I don't know how to spell, It's onomatopoeia. There's 4 vowels in a row. 4 different vowels at the end of that word. So it's either an onomatopoeia for the bird's call, or it comes from the Old English phrase "good" or "Godwit," which means good creature.
Huh.
So it does not have anything to do with deities.
But the term event. So the term Venery doesn't make sense.
Nope, it doesn't.
We're back
it has
to full circle.
It's just a good creature. Well, they named it Godwit, and then I guess the understanding of that fell out of style or fell out of understanding, and then some ornithologists said, "Oh, it's like a pantheon because there's a bunch of them and they're gods, kind of."
Elden Ring is probably a pantheon of gods. That it has a pantheon of gods that have names that are probably they mean good something. Like Godwin probably means good something.
Godwin, Godric.
Yeah.
Godfrey. Yeah, maybe if it's like an Old English thing, it's like good wind. Good Rick. And that's all I got. Care to grace us with I mean grace in the most literal and also least literal way possible. Guidance of grace.
Actually, Godwin actually means friend of God.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
But there goes that theory. Okay. Let's talk about the fast fact I'm calling long haul birds. I mean, the major fact. Bar-tailed godwits have the current record for the longest seasonal migration in the animal kingdom. Although I wrote this animal down to do because I heard that fact, but then I looked it up just to make sure today, and you know how Google is, like it'll say the caribou is the longest. It'll bring up the big text. Caribou is the longest terrestrial mammal migration. I'm like, that's more specific than I asked, Google. That's more specific than I asked. I want the best of any animal. But it might be this bird. Godwits breed in the summer in the northern hemisphere in the Arctic Circle or close to it, but they won't stand for the Arctic winters, and I don't blame them. They make a long journey south to temperate climates to wait out the big freeze. So there's different subspecies you mentioned. I think there's 4 or more, but they travel to different locations throughout the year depending on what subspecies they belong to. So Laponica, it's like I think you said the Lamosa laponica is this subspecies, and they travel between Scandinavia and Africa, which is was a good amount of distance. And then Men's beery, that subspecies, travels between Siberia and Australia, that's quite a distance. But then the Bowery subspecies travels between Alaska and Australia or New Zealand throughout the year. Alaska to New Zealand, across the Pacific and quite a ways south.
I always think of New Zealand as being like right there next to Australia, like Madagascar is to the mainland Africa, but it's pretty far away and down.
Yeah.
Like south.
Yeah, that's a
big difference.
If you travel there from here, it's like a long flight or a couple long flights. So the Bowery subspecies takes the cake for the longest migration. They can travel a total of about 11,000 kilometers or 6,835 miles. But they also travel distances of 6,000 kilometers or 3,728 miles to 8,600 kilometers, or 5,344 miles in single shots, which is quite crazy. So how do they do that?
Yeah.
So they need abnormally large fat reserves to be able to like expend energy for that long without stopping to refuel or rest. So in fact, they carry the most fat stores of any migratory bird. So they still need to get up in the air. So they reduce weight by having extra small digestive organs. And it's occurring to me that they might have mentioned that in the information I was reading, because small digestive organs also mean more fat is stored. So like your digestive system breaks down and uses food energy. But if you have less, like if you have shorter intestines or smaller digestive organs, you're not going to be able to use it all, and more will go into storage. So
So to lose weight, you're saying I need a longer digestive tract.
Yeah.
I see. The gears are turning.
So they also use weather patterns and seasonal wind shifts to aid in their flight. And they seem to be able to predict changes in the wind and prepare for departure at the exact right time. It's true for a lot of migratory birds, where like they seem to know when the wind is going to change before like humans can know with instruments. So it's pretty interesting. But that's all I got for that.
I see that the round trip is 18,000 miles.
Yeah.
So that means that like the trip there is more like 9.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, 9,000 miles. It depends on the bird. So there were studies where they literally tracked individual birds. So some of them might, the longest one might go like really far, like 9,000 miles.
Yeah, for Boweri.
Yeah.
Limosa laponica Boweri.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they don't like go to the equator or something. Why they go to the literal opposite end of the Earth, close to the other pole.
Well, they're going they're going from spring to spring, aren't they? Or like spring and summer to spring and summer. They're going to the other side of the Earth I said they don't do Arctic winters. I don't think they do winters at all.
Yeah, but winter in, Turkey is going to be fine compared to, winter in New Zealand is pretty bad.
Yeah, but like places that experience seasons usually have explosions of nutrients in the spring. So if you can ride that spring wave, that's pretty good.
So it's interesting where they just follow spring. Just go wherever in the world it's spring.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Spring and summer.
I always find it like really interesting the fact that there's that different parts of the world experience seasons at different times. So, like it's not winter in Australia right now, but Christmas still happens in December for Australia. So for them, winter and Christmas are not things that they associate outside of like, media and pop culture and stuff like that. But if it weren't for that, like, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. What? It is summer. It's December.
Do they have a white anything? Does it like other than like high elevation?
I'm not sure it snows.
Snow even.
I'm sure it has, but they don't. I think the highest elevation is that like one big table mountain in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's not high enough to like just be a snow-capped mountain.
There are plenty of places to enjoy snow in Australia. Some of the major destinations include the peaks of the Australian Alps, like Perisher, Threadbow, Charlotte Pass.
Sounds like I was
So I
wrong.
guess you have to go up in elevation and it has to be cold.
I figured it wasn't like a completely snowless continent. But it does seem like the south, the places closer to the South Pole have much more temperate winters than the places closer to the North Pole. Like, I would rather endure a winter in South Africa or Chile or something like that than, Iceland or Norway or something like that. But if I was just trying to
southern
escape the winter,
get colder. Australia is
I remember I went
a weird place.
I went to South Africa in the summer, and it was not cold, but I wore a sweater. It was July in South Africa, and I wore a sweater the whole time, pretty much. Like, it got chilly, but it wasn't like freezing. So it was really weird, and I was not prepared. I was not prepared for it not to be blazing hot in July in Africa. It's Africa, but nope, it's way down there. And I didn't do enough research. But yeah, that's long migration. I wouldn't want to make it. I'd probably stop at the equator and be like, I'm good, guys. I'll meet you back up in Siberia come spring again. I'm going to hang out right here
and die
in Portugal. No.
Oh, I see. You're going to go to the
something
equator.
Else. Yeah. I'd make it about halfway, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, the Mediterranean, I may even stay here forever, in fact. It was nice. But, they didn't ask me.
That's what happens to a lot of animals that retire to Florida.
The python is just retired to Florida.
Mm-hmm. A full species in retirement.
The lionfish is just retired to Florida. So is the iguana. All right, so that's the bar-tailed godwit. For you out there in Podcastia, wade into your neighborhood estuary, catch yourself a bivalve mollusk or two, then be sure to take a quick 18,000-mile jaunt to and from the tropics, like the bar-tailed godwit here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, I just want to remind you that we now have a Patreon. Patrons can see full video episodes and get shoutouts on the show. But ultimately, it's a way for you to help us cover some costs and get even better. Still, reviews are the best way to help us grow. So if you haven't left one yet, we'd really love to hear from you. As always, thanks for listening and engaging.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
I think it might be pronounced Caradriformes, because it's not Chordata.
Charadriformes?
Caradriformes.
Maybe. Caradriformes?